Buchanan, man, Bull, if you had told teenage me that I was going to be sitting here on a Zoom call interviewing Bull Buchanan, I would have never believed you. Right to Censor was one of my favorite tag teams and factions as a kid. So this is absolutely unreal. But before I get to that, we've got to talk about bullpen professional wrestling. You just had your first show June 6th. It looked like a great turnout. It looked like a great event. Tell me a little bit about bullpen professional wrestling. It's very new, how it came to be, and what your role is with it.
Well, I've waited a long time to do it. I've always wanted a training school, and I just kind of figured I would do that just because running a show is always such a hassle.
Yeah.
But I met a guy here in town, Tom Araquazo. He is he was a DJ at one of our local radio stations, so he's kind of a local celebrity too. So he's got a WGTV. I think it's on the Apple TV app. And he's also got a Facebook page, and he's a big fan of especially old school pro wrestling. So he got in touch with me. We started talking, and we just kind of laid this whole thing out. And like you said, we just had our first show. We had almost 450 people there.
Wow.
Right out of the gate. And I mean, we live in rural Georgia. We live in a small town. We're about 70 miles from Atlanta.
Okay.
So, drawing crowds like that's pretty good. I had a lot of friends come down and do it for me. Judas, he was there. David Young, Adam Jacobs, and I had a bunch of young kids too. A bunch of young kids that one of them's mine. My other son, Zach Buchanan, he was there, and Jaden Vane, AJ Black, both second generation wrestlers, both I think between 16 and 18 years old. So, and I got a couple of my trainees. One of them debuted, and another one is debuting on our next show. So it went pretty good. We were real happy with it. And we're planning on continuing. We're going to run monthly. I don't want to saturate there's actually a lot of good indie wrestling right around here. Premier All Star, NAW. There's a lot of good promotions here very close. So, we don't want to saturate it too much and burn people out. But our next event's on June 22nd, and then we're going monthly, July 20th, I believe, and we'll just continue going from there.
Was this your first time running a wrestling show and putting one on?
Well, yeah. I mean, actually, yeah. I have helped a lot, backstage with different promotions and stuff like that. My retirement show, I want to say that I kind of produced it, but really all I did was just put the matches together that I wanted.
Right.
I worked for the sheriff's agency, and they threw me a real nice retirement show. They flew D'Lo out so me and D'Lo could tag on it.
Nice.
And so, at the time I was actually in the police academy, so I didn't have time to try to put together a show, the way that you have to. And so I had a friend, Mark Sims, who's passed on, unfortunately, but he really did a lot of work on it for me. So actually just, first time out, yes, this is the first time I've actually, and, I see there's a reason why people get out of it, and they're so stressed out about it. It's a pretty big undertaking, but I focused on the wrestling, and Tom Araquazo focused on the production, and
nice.
If anybody's seen the production, it's pretty jam up.
Yeah, I've watched some clips. I have watched Bullpen Professional Wrestling on Facebook. I've checked it out, and I love that it's more than just matches. It's moments. There's moments that people will remember after they left that show. Whether it's Brooks appearing as a surprise, or giving Frankie Valentine the lifetime achievement, or you getting interrupted, or Lamar throwing the referee. Like, this is more than just a professional wrestling show. Like, you're producing moments that people will remember.
Yeah, I mean, it's not my formula. It's Vince's formula. It's always has been. But I mean, we're storylines are what drives our business to me. Um,
Yeah.
People invest in characters, but they also invest in storylines. I mean, if you doubt that, just look at the bloodline. Look how long that's ran. Look how many twists and turns it's had in it, and how good it's been. I mean,
Yeah.
it's storyline.
Mhm.
That's what drives our industry to me.
Yeah. I work with a local professional wrestling promotion up here in Indianapolis, and I've been there about 4 years. Now, I know how hard it is to put on a wrestling show. It goes a lot deeper than just, hey, we're having a show and here's some matches. Like, it's the production, it's the creative, it's the finding the talent, it's the hoping the talent all is still able to show up the day of the show. So many things that go into it. What are some of the things that you found with bullpen that maybe you weren't ready for, you weren't expecting, but you're learning as well as you go?
Well, a friend of mine named Shane Knowles brought the ring, and he used to run Peach State Wrestling down here in Georgia, and it was a pretty successful promotion through the mid 2000s on up to, I guess, maybe right before the pandemic.
Mhm.
Drew some really good houses, and was one of the mainstays around here. So he brought the ring, and we had a few of the training guys got held up or had to do something else, and
Yeah.
we wound up putting the ring together. And I found out I wasn't ready for that.
It's
It's been
hard.
a while since I had to help set one up, and
Yeah.
yeah, I couldn't hardly move the next day. That's one thing I found out. But
Yeah.
I was supposed to do color commentary, and I think I sat there for 2 minutes, and the rest of the time I was up running.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot. It is a lot. But when it comes together, and when you look out and see that crowd, and know that you did well, it makes it worth it.
It really does. There's nothing like watching a show that you basically breathe life into come together, let alone drawing well, attending well, and people really reacting and falling in love with it. Um, how do you, I know it is a training school, so how do you, if somebody wants to get involved with bullpen, become a wrestler, get on a show, like, how do they do that? What are you looking for people to join the training school or wrestle on the show?
Well, I look at it a little different than some people do. Um, I look at it from a standpoint, if somebody's got a passion for this and somebody wants to do it and they're willing to put in the time and put in the grind and put in the effort, then it's my job as a promoter to find them something to do. Now, everybody can't be a wrestler, but there's a lot of other jobs, and with Tom's, his technical background and his production, um, anybody that wants to come to school to learn in wrestling, it doesn't have to be amateur, in the ring wrestling. We got a couple of kids that are learning how to, run the cameras and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But I think that once again, if you look for a business model, just look for the whoever is the best in that industry, and without a doubt, that's WWE. So me and Tom, I kind of had the ideal, but me and Tom just sat there. Tom is involved with the school system here,
Okay.
and he carries all of the high school sports. He carries football, he carries basketball,
Oh,
wrestling,
wow.
track. So we're involved with the schools here. So I just took WWE's developmental business model and just scaled it down to something that we could use on a much smaller level and at a different level. I think it's the NAI program. I'm probably saying that wrong,
Oh, the
but
NIL program, the Next in
yes,
Line
the
program.
NIL
Yeah, the
program.
NIL
Yes,
program. Yeah.
yes, where they take college athletes and
Mhm.
and bring them down there and train them, and
Yeah.
it's basically the same thing. Now, like I said, I mean, anybody that wants to do this, you don't even have to have an athletic background. But, we're really looking at the high schools. A lot of these seniors that are getting out that, played football, that were incredible athletes, but maybe they're not going to college, maybe they're not playing, a college sport, or, just don't know what they're going to do. We're looking at those guys. So it's basically the same business model. We're just doing it on a lower, we're just catching them coming out of high school instead of catching them coming out of college. So, you know, and we get good athletes.
Yeah.
We get kids that played football. My background was in basketball.
Okay.
Uh, we get amateur. One of our first graduates was a heck of an amateur wrestler. Just a couple of high schools away from here. At
Nice.
Bremen High School there in Boxley. He was a tremendous high school wrestler. And Tom Araquazo, my partner, all three of his sons were state champions here in Georgia. So, we got a good amateur background around here. So why not utilize it?
How special was it to have Thunderbolt Patterson on the show as an appearing and signing and involved? Because just going into the Hall of Fame this year is huge, but I feel like he's one of the most unappreciated talents in the history of professional wrestling. He's done so much. How special was that for you to have him on that show?
It was very special because he was one of the first. He was one of the first wrestlers I ever saw.
Oh,
I had been a sports fan. My dad liked to watch football, so I watched football, played football. I played baseball, played basketball, so I was all into the stick and ball sports.
yeah.
And I flipped through the channels one day, and I saw these guys in different colored, in tights. And one of the first promos I ever heard was Thunderbolt Patterson, and I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that they're actually talking about each other like this. You didn't hear that on the NFL or
Yeah.
NBA or Major League
Yeah.
Baseball. You didn't hear guys calling each other egg sucking dogs and stuff like that. So yeah, I was automatically, and I was always a Thunderbolt, like every other kid around here. I was a Thunderbolt Patterson. So I in a weird kind of way, I think I had met him before that, but he actually moved down here close to where we're at, and he came to the sheriff's department a few times. I was an investigator at the time, and he come up to my office, and he was wanting to do something. And I said, I don't really have a ring. I don't really, I'm not really doing anything at the time. And me and Tom started talking about this thing in March, I guess, early March, late February, early March. And I thought to myself, it would be great to get, because I remembered, that he lived close by. And I thought to myself, it'd be great to get Thunderbolt on the show. And then just as that thought crossed my mind, I was sitting watching Monday Night Raw, and they announced him for the Hall of Fame. And I said, well, forget about that then,
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but actually, Thunderbolt reached out to us, and
Wow.
he knew it was my show, and he reached out to us, and he said, "Yeah, I can come." I didn't know what if I know sometimes they put them on Legends deals and that kind of stuff, but
Yeah.
he said no, he'd come. So yeah, and I got to talk to him. I wish I'd got to talk to him a little more, but you know, uh, Thunderbolt was a huge star, especially here in Georgia. So yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it was really cool when I saw that get announced. I wanted to ask, like, you got out of the business. Like you were out. That doesn't happen often where somebody's out, let alone comes back in. What, 10 years, 9, 10 years
Yeah,
after getting out? Like
yeah.
you got out. It doesn't happen. Like, what pulled you back in? What did it? Was it your sons wanting to become wrestlers or
Yeah, it's classic John Wick. I touched a pinky in it and got dragged back in. So I knew my son. I knew my son Ben would eventually want to do it because he was just a huge fan since he was a little kid.
Mhm.
And at about 14, he was already almost as big as I was. He was 6'2" at 14, and about 200 pounds. And he asked and if I would train him, and I said I'll train you to be a referee, and we'll. So I let him ref a few matches, and
Mhm.
when we go to the shows, I would show him different stuff,
Yeah.
and that's that. I was totally out of it, and I said, look, I'm gonna get out of it, and I'm not gonna get back in, because an old friend of mine, Doug Summers, told me, he said, if you want to stay out of it, don't go back around it. And
Yes.
I hadn't up to that point.
Yeah.
And I went with Ben one time, and then within 6 months, I was already back in the ring with him, tagging with him and doing different stuff.
Wow.
But yeah, yeah, you get back around it, and it just, I don't know, it does something to you, and it just drags you back in. So yeah, I'm back in hook, line, and sinker now. So
It,
uh,
it's good to have you back in the business. It it
thank you.
it really is. Um, so many so many things you've done in wrestling just stand out. And my wife was not a wrestling fan when I met her. I remember turning on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown when I met her back in 2012. She'd be like, oh God, this stuff really? And then I went to a
Yeah,
Raw and she turned it on to watch, see if she could find me. She's like, I'm hooked. And so here we are 12 years late, 10 years later now. And I'm like, oh, if you think it's good in 2024, you should have seen it in the 90s. So I made her go back and we're watching Raw from 96 on. And one of the first things that really a lot of people remember you for in the WWF was the Truth Commission, you
Yep.
know? And I did not realize that that didn't start on the WWF main roster. That started before you came into, onto national television. What was that time like, joining the Truth Commission? And it's hard to believe it wasn't, I thought it was longer than it was, but it wasn't around for a hell of a long time.
No, it wasn't. Brett had been over to South Africa and met an actor over there that I think they were doing a Sinbad episode,
Okay.
and they had talked about this thing called, the Truth Commission, and he brought it back to Vince, and Vince liked it. That was kind of, something Vince would like at the time. South, three military big guys. Uh, Kurgan had already worked a little bit up in Canada, and Brett knew him, so he put him in. Mike Halleck was originally one of the members, Mantar, and he had worked
Oh,
with he'd worked with Owen over in Germany, and Owen said, "Hey, he's Mantar, he's over there, he's not doing anything," so they brought him in. And from what I understand, Brett was just looking through some photos of just some of the guys, and he saw me, and at the time I had a crew cut, and I kind of looked the military part. So he said, "Well, there you go. There's three of us." And he brought Robin Smith, the actor that
mhm.
they had cooked this whole thing up in South Africa about. They brought him over. He was the commandant, and we got together in Stanford. We worked on. Robin was an actual. At one time, he was actually in the South African military.
Oh,
So he
wow.
taught us all, yeah, he taught us all how to march and how to salute, the whole thing. And they sent us down to Memphis, and we stayed down there about 6 months, I guess. Just working on stuff and trying to get it together. So we stayed down there, and they used it pretty well. They kept tag belts on me and Kurgan for a while, and
Mhm.
Lawler of course, took care of us. We were sent down from New York.
Sure.
So we were down there, and we got the call to come up and do a dart match. I think it was at the time it was Shotgun Saturday Night. So we came up and did a dart match, and then when we debuted on TV the next time, and I don't know the whys or whats of it, but Mantar was replaced with uh, Luke Poirier,
Right.
who was Sniper.
Yep.
And Luke had actually been in WWF before, I think almost back in like 1980,
Oh, wow.
6 or something. But he was very famous over in Germany. He was Rambo over in Germany.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, Owen knew him, and for whatever reason they replaced Mike, uh, and then three of us went on. Um, but Robin, the commandant, had visa some kind of they're having trouble with his visa, so they wound up letting him go, and they brought Don Callis in, which
Yes. The
was
Jackal. Yep.
yeah was great too. But it
Hmm.
just we went in a totally different direction, and I actually thought that you know I think it had limited shelf value. If you remember back, it was it was 1997. It was Survivor Series. It was a big build up. It was gang warfare. There was the
Yeah.
Boricuas, the Nation,
DOA was
the
in there.
DOA. Yes,
Yep.
it was all gang warfare. So after that was over, and after we kind of gone in a different direction with Don, I actually thought it might have more legs under it because we were Don with Don. We were going really toward a almost a David Koresh kind of thing, like a cult leader kind of. And at the time,
Yeah.
that fit right into the culture at the time.
Hmm.
So I really thought we had more legs with that than we did the actual Truth Commission. But it didn't last that long either.
Yeah.
Kurgan got put into the oddities, and Don, floated around for a little bit. Me and Luke were off the road for a while, probably about a year.
Hmm.
Um, but then, I got brought back But yeah, that was a truth commission, and yeah, it really did. I think we went down to Memphis. I think in January, we stayed down to maybe May or June. Went up to the main roster, and then by I think we did WrestleMania that next year, and then we were off the road again.
Yeah,
So
I kind of feel that I enjoyed Don a lot more as the leader of the truth. With Robin, it just seemed it came out of nowhere for one. Like I remember one week he popped onto the Tron. I'm like,
yeah,
this is different, but it's interesting. But there seemed to be a little bit of a disconnect there for some reason. Like it just didn't seem to be clicking. But when Don Callis became the leader with the Jackal, like, things really clicked. And then maybe I feel like it was longer because you guys were a focal point on TV every
yeah,
Monday Night Raw. Like it
yeah,
was every Raw. You were there, sometimes multiple segments. Like it was
yeah.
they really, really put a lot behind you guys, you know?
Yeah. Well, Robin, the original commandant, had no idea about anything about wrestling. He'd never seen wrestling, heard of wrestling. He just walked up on Brett on the set, and I guess they had maybe some verbiage together or something, and they were just talking, and that's where it became from.
Hmm.
He had no idea. I mean, he had to learn totally from scratch, which he was an actor, which was a
Yeah.
plus. I mean,
Yeah.
but Don, I didn't realize all the other guys, Luke and of course Kurgan, were from Canada, so they knew Don. I didn't know Don,
Right.
and I was so impressed. One of the first times I saw him work, I remember him coming back through this curtain, and I said, "Shit, man, we need to be managing you." Uh, he, he was amazing. I didn't know he was also a worker, and he never really got to work that much, which
Right.
is a shame. But yeah, Don fit right in, and if you think about what time it was in the business, in the industry, we had just turned that corner where and the original Truth Commission was a very '80s,
Yeah.
early '90s style gimmick,
Hmm.
as opposed to the way we went with it with Don, which fit
Yeah.
much more into the Attitude Era.
Yeah, for sure. It was a really weird time, especially in '97 WWF, where it was like in between the new
Yeah,
generation and the Attitude Era. There was that weird limbo period that like still some early '90s, but some Attitude Era style stuff. But man, the right to censor, I feel like that is what really that's what people remember the most. And again, it wasn't a horribly long-lived group, but
no,
you were the first one to join the right to censor, I think. Weren't you? You
yeah.
were the first to join. What was your reaction when you found out that they were going to do the right to censor? And man, was that some of the most fun you've had in wrestling
Oh,
in your career?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Steve Richards was a friend we'd met. I did a little weekend in ECW prior to coming to WWE, and uh, we had gotten to know each other a little bit, once we were both there, and so we got to be friends. And I knew he was doing, something, but I wasn't sure what it was. I kind of thought, well, with white shirt and the black, it looks a little, like Mormonish,
Hmm.
but I wasn't sure what it was. And we were in Albany, New York, and he told me that they were putting me with him, and he laid the whole thing out to me. And I said, well, God, man, this will get a ton of heat if they,
Yeah.
if they let it run for a little bit, and it did.
Oh man, it did.
We'll say what you want to about it, but yeah, it was a heat magnet, especially at
Oh
that
my
time.
God. Yes.
Yeah, as soon as that music started blaring, that god awful, annoying music, yes,
Oh
we
man.
had a ton of heat with that thing, and
Yeah.
they kept us in all the good. They kept us in good angle. We did the thing
Yeah.
with China right after she did the Playboy. We did stuff with Rock. We did stuff with Billy. We were constantly, in with the Dudleys, and so yeah, it was a blast to do.
It good God, yeah, talk about heat. Like good. Oh my God. Like and honestly, like the way Jim Ross would just antagonize Stevie Richards every week with the old White Sox and all
The
that,
White
like
Sox, yeah.
added to it so much. But it was man, I feel like it was such it was like a no-brainer in the Attitude Era in 2000 for there to be that group, because like you said, there was so much edgy, not family-friendly stuff going on. The like,
Oh yeah,
why wouldn't you have a heel group? Censor everything that the fans love about the WWF. It made perfect sense, but some of the feuds you guys had, the Dudleys, the APA, I mean, it was,
yeah,
and that was just with you and Stevie, but like when Godfather joins and Val Venus joins and Ivory joins, like obviously Godfather's been very outspoken that he did not enjoy
oh yeah,
the right to
yeah,
censor. How did
yeah.
Val how did Val feel about the right to censor and Ivory? Did they feel the same way, or were they more like it's a change, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Well, I mean, Val was pretty popular at the time. Um, Ivory, she was just she was a trooper. She just jumped right in with both feet, and hit the ground running. The Charles didn't like it, but you have to understand, he was probably at least in the top five, not top three in merchandise sales in the company at that time, and that's including Rock and Stone, Austin
Yeah.
and Baker and those guys. He was moving a ton of merchandise and making a ton of money off
Mhm.
merchandise. So that killed all that for him.
That's
And
true.
to probably a lesser extent, but still, Val the same way. Val was selling a lot of merch. Val was still very popular babyface at that time.
Mhm.
So with them, I kind of, especially with Charles, I understand it. We wound up riding together, me, him, and Teddy Long, and that was a blast. We had
Oh,
always a good time with those
oh
guys.
man.
But so we got to be friends, and I knew he didn't like it, and but he did it. Hey, we all
Mhm.
did. For me, it wasn't a stretch for me. I was already a jerk. I just got out. We've been with Boss Man, and
Yeah.
that's all I'd ever been was a heel up there.
Mhm.
Charles Godfather had been a babyface for a while now.
Yeah.
So is
Yeah.
Val and Ivory too. But like I said, I think at the time, I don't know what they were really doing with Ivory. Um,
She
and
was kind
I
of in
yeah,
limbo.
yeah, and in all honesty, we were gonna have to uh, do something with, they weren't gonna let us get away with what we were getting away with for much longer. So it was actually it was actually genius, because Vince basically censored himself. He drew a house out of it and he drew money off of it, and he did what he had to do, and it wasn't his fault at the end of the day. It was ours.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was a win-win for everybody. We got pushed, we got TV time, we got me and Charles got a chance to hold the belts for a minute there. And he could, and I think Stevie actually told me one time that the PTC, the parent teacher this was all a jab at the parent teacher
Yeah.
council,
Yeah.
because they were all over us about
They
everything.
hated you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
They hated you. Yeah.
So yeah, this was a jab at them, and I think Stevie told me one time that somebody got a letter from them commending the WWE or commending us for what we were doing, trying to straighten out. I guess they didn't put two and two together and realize it was a work. But I don't know how true that was, but I think Stevie told me that one time. But
I
yeah,
could see that being I could see that being true. I could
yeah, of
totally
course
see that
they
being
were happy about it. Hell, we were their heroes. I mean, that they were the only probably 80 or 90 people in the world that liked us. But there are actually people that did come to the shows and they would dress up like us.
really.
Yes, yes, they
Wow.
would dress up like Stevie. They one guy would come and he would put on the skin, the rubber skin cap, for
The
the
bald
bald
hat.
guy for me. Yeah, and one guy would be, yeah, they would actually dress up like us, especially in New York and Philly, of course.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's great. Um, I stopped watching wrestling at one point. I can't remember when, but I missed your run with Cena. That was at the very beginning of his career. He was a heel at that time.
Yep. Yep.
What was that was what was that time like for you? Because that was also towards the end of your time there as well. What was
Yeah.
do you have fond memories of that time very much? And what was that transition from right to censor to teaming with John like? And yeah.
I do. I have a lot of great memories of that. The only bad memory I had is the day I got my release, I guess.
That makes
Um,
sense. That makes
but
sense.
we the RTC was, we knew it was winding down, but I don't think thought it was going to wind down as quickly as it did. But we bought WCW, and all of that happened, right there, kind of at the same time. So we were off the road. So I went down to OVW, worked for Jimmy down there a little bit.
Mhm.
And when we'd go out to the West Coast, I'd met Cena when he was out there doing dark matches.
Yeah.
And then I saw him when he was in OVW, and I knew he could talk. And I knew, of course, he looked like $1 million, and he could work, and he got it. He understood, the psychology of it. He understood why to do it and when to do it. And so, I knew, you never know for sure, but I knew he had a better than average chance of really, you know, doing well, making some money and everything. And once we got up there, I I wasn't back on TV yet, but I was on the road doing dark matches and working on house shows, which was great because I
House
like
shows are
being on the
awesome.
road.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, when he started doing the rap thing, it was only a few weeks, and somebody come to me backstage and said, "Hey, we're putting you with Cena tonight." And me and Paul Lee had known each other for a few years. I'd worked for him in ECW that one time, and we always kept up with each other. He was always very good to me, and he was a head writer at SmackDown at that time. And we had been kicking around a few ideals, but this was kind of out of the blue. And me and Shelton Benjamin were riding together at the time, and I told him about it, and I was kind of thinking, well, is it a bodyguard, like a suit and tie bodyguard, or is it And I remember they said, no, you're kind of like his sidekick. And I told Shelton, I said, well, let's go to the mall and see what kind of get up we can find. And on the way over there, I had just bought the new Eminem CD, and it dawned on me. I said, holy shit, Slim Shady, Eminem. And that's where I got the wife beater, I got the brown pants, the whole thing was Eminem. That's where I
Nice.
got the inspiration for the character from. And the little piece of tape under there, that was a little throw to Nelly at the time.
Okay. He was
This was 2000, so
he
you
was
know
everyone had the thing. Yeah.
yeah,
I remember I was big into rap music at the time. My stepbrother and I
yeah,
remember he bought Nellyville. I'm like, oh, that band
yes,
tape right there. Yeah. Yeah.
yes. Oh my God, yeah, we wore that CD out. Yeah,
Oh man.
but yeah, that's how it came. And then they put us together, and man, we just had a good time. But I mean, we liked each other. We already knew each other, so yeah, we had a good time with it. I thought it, like I said, of course, everything you thought it could have went a little longer, but
Hmm.
I knew probably a month or two in, I had a feeling that they were really getting to elevate him. I mean, they
Yeah.
were really impressed with him, and why not? They should be. But they were really impressed with him. And I saw Vince talking to him. And at this point, me and Vince had a pretty good relationship. Uh, when I first came there, I was scared to death to talk to him.
Yeah.
But I was there 8 years. So over the years, we'd gotten a pretty good relationship. And I saw him talking to him one day, and just the way he pulled him off the side and was talking to him, something told me. And then we were talking, Vince and I, were talking a little bit afterwards, and he said, well, that kid's fixing to really go somewhere. And I said, yeah, he should, and he did. So
Yeah. It
yeah,
worked out pretty
I mean,
well for him. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, I feel like people forget how you had a really long run in the WWF, WWE. You were there for before the Attitude Era, during, after, during the invasion. Like you had a run. What do you
yeah.
think on your end? What do you think it was for you that helped with that longevity? Because there's not really a lot of in between. People either have a really short stint or they're there for a few years. And like, what do you think did it for you that helped your longevity?
Um, a few things helped, but there was the one main thing I think, and I will always think and give this advice to anybody else that's trying to do this. Um, I don't know that I was a very talented pro wrestler at all. But I was great. I was a really good athlete. I had, good size. I looked good. I stayed in the gym, and I was a basketball player, so I had good. I had springs. I was pretty well balanced. I was a pretty good athlete, and there was stuff I could pull off as a good athlete that helped me, with the other stuff, with the wrestling. The main thing I think it was uh, I never looked at it like anybody owed me anything in this business. I never looked at it that the business itself owed me everything. I always took each day as a blessing to be in the business. I was always happy with what I made, and I was always happy when I was brought back. And I never didn't appreciate that. I didn't never looked at it as a job. I think they say if you do something you love, you never work a day in your life. I mean, that's what I love to do. So to me, it was never a job, but I approached it as a job. I approached it as that Vince McMahon was my employer. He looked for a fair, honest day's work, and he paid me a fair, honest day's price. And that's the way I always looked at it. I always came to work. I came on time. I didn't bitch about what they wanted done or how they wanted it to do. I didn't, and actually, I don't know that this is a good approach sometimes in the wrestling business, because it seems like the more outspoken you are, but I mean, that really wasn't me.
Right.
I always, I always thank JR when we got the booking sheet and I was on all the house shows. I always thank JR. And Jim Cornette and JR were both advocates for me. So Jimmy introduced me to JR, and of course JR was over talent relations at the time. And that was the guy that was signing checks. But
Mhm.
JR appreciated my work ethic. He never had to ask me to go to OVW or go to Memphis or go to here or go there. 9 times out of 10, I called him and said, "Hey, can I go?" And of course he would say, "Yeah." So, I approached it like you would, if you had a really, really, really great job that you wanted to keep. You get to work on time, you do what you're told, and you don't cause problems.
Shifting gears, how proud are you of what Brooks has been able to accomplish and the name he's been able to make for himself down in NXT, whether it be the teaming with Josh or, I mean, he has been over the last few years a very integral part of NXT, a lot of TV time. How you got to be proud of what he's been able to do?
Oh, very proud, very proud. The one thing that I'm most proud of is the way that I mean, I have friends down there,
Mhm.
coaches that are friends, Steve Carino, Matt Bloom, I me and Sean have known each other for a long time. Always got along with Sean. So when they come and tell you, hey, he's very respectful. He respects the business. When people don't respect the business, he makes it known. He's a locker room leader. When they tell you that kind of stuff, that really means more to me than actually, even what he's done on screen. Is the way he conducts himself and the way he respects the business and approaches the business. That's the way I was taught, and that's the way I taught him. That's the way I've taught my other son Zach. Just you respect this business because this is how you make your living. So you take care of it, and you do what's right for it.
Absolutely. One thing I've learned is wrestling is it could be the most make you the most miserable you've ever been, but also the happiest you've ever been. And a lot of times sometimes it's not anything on you, but a lot of times it is how what you put into it, you get right back, and how you
Yeah,
treat it will treat you.
yeah,
And the philosophy and psychology that you've talked about with what led to your longevity sounds like he's got that same mentality. Um, you know, so but what's going on with Brooks right now? He popped up on bullpen. He doesn't seem happy. He's been pretty outspoken about that, but how special was it to have him appear on your first show?
I didn't. Everybody says, "Oh, you knew." I really didn't know. I hoped he was going to be able to make it. I wasn't sure because just several different things going on with him. He told me, "Man, I'm going to try to be there," and I knew right before he walked in is when I knew. But of course, it was great for him to be there. I hoped he could be, but you understand because
Oh yeah.
they keep pretty busy down there.
Hmm.
Honestly, I don't really know. Um, I know that his contract is coming up. I know that he was maybe asking for more money, and I don't know.
Right. I don't
Um,
want to put you in.
but
I don't want to put you in a bad spot,
oh
and
no,
at all.
no,
I
but
really don't.
I was, yeah, I was. I'm in all transparency. I was a little shocked at what he said. I gave him a mic, and understanding that he could say anything he wanted to, and he did. Um,
This is true.
at one point, I kind of stepped over and said, "Hey, man, ease up a little bit." And he's like, "No, I got something." I said, "Okay, say what you got to say." So,
So it's
you know, the
it's
one thing
interesting.
that the one thing that I like I said, I mean, I wasn't a yes guy. I was just a guy that did what I was told.
Yeah.
Uh, I didn't try to reinvent the wheel. I didn't try to excuse me. I always tried to give 100% at whatever they asked me to do. However, if it was being a rapper or being a SWAT guy or being, a Mormon, whatever it was, I tried to give 100%. And I think he kind of feels like he's been down there doing that, and maybe just hadn't been appreciated enough. So one of the things I always heard and I didn't really subscribe to was the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Mm.
So he's kind of testing that. He's kind of testing that theory out for me. So if it works, I guess I'll look back on it and say, well, maybe I should have done that. But the other side of it, like I told him, I said, you always got a home here. If something
Right.
goes south, you can always
Yeah.
come back here.
Well, and right now, with different promotions working with WWE and NXT right now, there's a lot of people coming into NXT, but not a lot of NXT people going anywhere. He might be the first NXT talent to pop up on another show right now. That might be, and people are talking about it too. I mean, Wrestle Talk just posted about it. I mean, it's getting some attention, and I mean, what better time for bullpen and for you than for that to happen on your first show if people are talking about the first show? Like, it
Yeah,
that worked out.
I was hoping because of course, when I found out I was running the show, of course I said, man, I want you to be there, no matter what capacity that is. If you have to stand backstage or
Just to be there.
whatever, I just want you to
Yeah.
be there. And he said, of course, he wanted to.
Yeah.
But I was the best I was hoping for was just maybe pop his head out and say hey to everybody. I had no idea what was going to happened.
Right.
So I hope it works out good for him, but it's definitely worked out good for us because yeah, I mean
Yes.
everybody's talking about it, and
Yeah.
all overnight Bullpen Pro Wrestling is on everybody's
It
website
is.
and everybody's. So yeah, it's worked out pretty good
Yeah.
for me anyway. Like I said, I hope it works out good for him. I
Yeah.
guess we'll wait and see.
Where can people watch the next show? I mean, obviously clips on the Facebook page and social media. Where can people find Bullpen Professional Wrestling? If people are in the area and want to check out the next show, where can they go? Tell me a little bit about, just plug Bullpen right now and where it's accessible for fans.
So, like I said, he's got his WGTV app. Like I said, I think it's on Apple. It's on also on Facebook. So, the show that aired, the show that we did last weekend, will air this Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. We're doing the old Memphis, Saturday morning wrestling.
Nice.
It'll air in its entirety on WGTV and on Facebook also. Our next show is June 22nd, same place. It's at Bowden High School. It's my alma mater. It's where I graduated from. Uh,
Nice.
we were actually going to do the show in the old gym where I actually played basketball and actually where I had my retirement show. And Bowden High School, it's not a huge. I think we had from our retirement show, I think we had maybe 500 or 600 people, and it was just standing room only. But it's the old Hoosiers. If you ever watched the movie Hoosiers, it's an old gym like that. And they had been letting us practice in it, but I don't guess they realized, we're going to put a lot of people in there. And they brought it to my attention, there was a lot of holes I didn't know about in the floors backstage, and some trouble with the toilets and stuff. And I was like, well, what do we do now? And they said, oh, no problem. Offered up the new gym. So we got the almost brand new state of the art, and Tom was tickled to death because there was hardly any internet access in the old gym. And it was just going to be swimming upstream. And they offered up the new gym. And I mean, you can see on the TV, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Holds, I think if it's completely full, would hold about 2,000 people. Hopefully we get there someday. We're not there yet, but I think we'll get there.
You're on your way. I mean, packing over 400 people in the first show is insane. I could name 100 indie local promotions that would kill to have even half of that. So that is just absolutely amazing.
Well,
Less,
I think the secret, I think what is making it work is Tom and I both have what the other one needs. Tom has all the equipment, all the TV production, all of that, and he knows how to use it. And, my thing is the wrestling. So we put those two together, and I think we come up with a pretty good product.
absolutely. Yeah, I've watched most of the clips that you've got on the Facebook page so far. I love what I see. To wrap it up, what stands out to you about your career? What are you most thankful for, and just what do you love about what makes you keep falling in love with professional wrestling after all these years?
Wrestling was my friend when I didn't have, well, I don't want to make it a sob story or anything. I had plenty of friends, but wrestling has been my mistress for many, many years. Even before I knew what that word meant. Wrestling was what when I got off school bus on Friday, that's what I was that whole week. No matter how crappy it was, I was living for Saturday night, and I could watch Tommy Rich and Wrestling 2 and those guys.
Yes.
And I've never forgot that feeling, and then being able to get into it and be able to live it, and to live it with even something like my heroes like Tommy Rich and those guys, getting to ride with them and work with them and doing all that is just it's a dream come true. So, when I get off the phone here, I'll probably sit down for an hour before I go to bed and watch old Mid-South Wrestling or Memphis or something like that. It's just man, it makes me feel good. It's and I'm glad that I always found it. I always wanted to believe in this business. Um, I did believe it, when I was younger, when I was a kid, and even when I got into it, the people that trained me to respect the business, because this is how you make your living. You don't crap on something that's feeding your family. So I always respected the business. I always took it seriously, and that's what I've tried to instill in my boys. The same kind of thing. You take care of what takes care of you, and this business took care of me for a long time. When I got out of it by choice. I could have kept on going, and I was still making. I wasn't going to Japan anymore, but I was still making good money. But I just, I didn't want to hang on too long, and you know, um, I think I got out while I was still, in pretty good shape, and just wanted to do it the right way. So I guess, I just I appreciate the chance to be in this business. I never dreamed of getting as far as I did. I never dreamed of being in WWF. All I wanted to do was, and I've told this story a million times, but man, I just wanted to make $500. That was my breaking point. If I could make $500, I'd be able to quit my normal everyday job, whatever that was at the time, and just be a pro wrestler, and just go to Columbus, Georgia, go to Atlanta, Georgia, Knoxville, Tennessee. I would have been happy doing that. Luckily it worked out a little better for me, but yeah, I appreciate every day that I get in the business.
And as a fan that grew up watching it, thank you for all of the memories and
Oh,
doing
yeah.
what you did for as long as you did it. And thank you for coming back to the business.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
thank you. And thank you for growing the business. And thanks for doing this interview tonight.
No
I really
problem, man.
appreciate it, man. You have a really, really special product down there in Georgia.
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
I wish you all the best of luck with Bullpen. And I'll be watching.
Thank
I'm
you.
following the page. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yes.
please do. Hey, Indiana ain't too far of a drive, man. Come on down. We'd love to have you.
I may do that. I like to drive. I might do that. I'll hit you up if I ever make it my way down
Yeah,
there.
please do. Please do. Hey,
Love
you're
to
more than welcome.
would love to check it out. Thank you so much for doing this tonight, and good luck on the next show in a couple weeks.
Thank you.